Hey, how you doing? I'm Adam Post, publisher of College of the Dead, publisher of more than 1,000 different independent comic books. That's a lot of comic books. I don't even know how many there are. There are a lot of them. And this is another one of my educational, fantastic, interesting, and fascinating. Did I say educational? I did. And fascinating Secrets of the ComicsGate Network series videos. I do these videos to share my experience of 30 years plus of independent comic book publishing and my 2 years or so experience with doing crowdfunding, getting familiar with it, getting to know everybody, some great people in crowdfunding, particularly in the ComicsGate network. And I want to do this video for a while. This is a video to just educate people from my experience in business, specifically in comics, in independent comics publishing. I know a lot more about this than most people do. I'm not trying to be egotistical here, but this is actually my background, and it's not just my comic book publishing background. It also tracks to my finance and process management background. So I'm going to speak to it, and this will kind of clear up, I think, a couple of weird things that are going around, particularly from people who are jealous of the success of ComicsGate. This video is about ComicsGate, how you can tell it's a huge success. It's a bigger success than people realize. I'll show you some examples, and I want you to make sure you subscribe, click the bell for notifications, share this video around, but put in the comments any other questions or clarifications that you're looking for. And I like to have fun when I do these videos and I do live streams, but I am serious as a heart attack about this. I really want to make sure that people understand how successful ComicsGate is, so they really appreciate it and they realize like what the opportunity is here. If you're someone who loves comics, you've always loved the form, and you enjoy the entertainment, and you just want to see comics continue, just understand and know that this is really, as Ethan Van Sciver calls it, the life raft. This is something that's saving the future of comic books. Crowdfunding is important, but it's really the community of people that are organized around ComicsGate supporting the production of each other's comics, as well as the promotion of those comics, the experience that it takes, the problem solving that we do together. It's that collaboration and coordination that we actually do that's actually working through Twitter and through YouTube, and through videos like this and other videos that John Malin does explaining it. I know a couple of the other guys have said they're going to do more explanatory videos to share some of our knowledge with other ComicsGate people and people who are curious about it. This is what's going to give us a future in comic books. Everyone else has really abandoned it, or they're working like lone bandits in their own, all off on their own, and not collaborating with each other as self-publishers can do through ComicsGate like nowhere else. So the first point is to understand that in comic books, traditionally issue number 1 does better than issue number 2. It's actually pretty rare that when you publish an issue number 1, that issue number 2 or issue number 3 sells better than issue number 1. It's been that way for a very long time. There are exceptions to that rule. There's an occasional runaway hit where the comics go back into print, and then by the time you're on issue 5, you're outselling by multiple copies, multiple numbers, outselling issue number 1. It happens, but it's relatively rare that it happens. It happened certainly with The Walking Dead. It happened with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It happened with Valiant 1.0, which is the first iteration of Jim Shooter's Valiant comics. It happens. You can point to here and you can point to there, but it's usually just the runaway hits. It's got to be less than 5% of ongoing series get that treatment in normal comic book sales. And that's why you see in a comic book store, they frequently have number 1 issues. Of the 1,000 comics that I published, take a wild guess how many of them were probably number 1. I'm going to say about at least 40 or 50% of them. Just one new idea after another new idea, because number 1 sell. They certainly sell better than number 2, but not when you really have a dedicated fan base who are really invested in your character and your idea and your series and the person who's making that, who shows their commitment on a regular basis through social media, through YouTube, their fans and to their idea. What am I talking about? I'm talking about me. I'm talking about other people, but I'll start with Ethan Van Sciver's Cyberfrog. This is the first Cyberfrog campaign. It did a very healthy $538,456, and with 8,566 backers. I wasn't sure. Ethan advised me yesterday that it was a 60-day campaign. It started off at 30 days, and then got extended. There were a bunch of stretch goals that Ethan added. He brought the cover up to chromium, beautiful looking comic book. It's much bigger than it was initially promised. The book was delivered. It took a little more time than expected to deliver it, but first rate, top notch, gorgeous product. Really, really passion project that Ethan delivered on. People loved it. And a lot of naysayers were saying, well, ComicsGate may have sold a lot of copies initially of that book, but they're not going to sell more copies. They're not going to sell those kind of numbers. And Ethan needs to understand that that's not how business works. And, everyone who said that, as I was listening to it, having been an experienced publisher, I had thought to myself, I don't know what the basis is of what these people are saying. Yes, there was extra enthusiasm around ComicsGate when it first launched, because it was a potential solution to the destruction of mass media, the destruction of comic books and heroes from mass publishers, from the major publishers, even the larger independents. So yeah, there was a lot of enthusiasm and excitement around it, but that's not the only reason why people bought the book. It wasn't some kind of a protest purchase. People were interested in the creator and the character. Ethan has a huge YouTube channel with tremendous engagement with his audience because he's incredibly entertaining. I can sit there and watch one of his live streams for 2 hours or 3 hours, and it's commercial free, except when he's talking about his comics, but I like that too. So it's got a lot of value. So on the 15th, I was fortunate to be there. We launched Ethan's sequel book. And it should be said that in addition to this first 538,000, Ethan has sold more than another $500,000 with a couple of additional variant covers to meet the demand of his growing audience as time went on. So I was happy to be there on this past Sunday with Ethan as he launched his sequel book. And you can see the video. I re-uploaded it. Ethan has it available. I have Ethan's permission to do that when I'm on his show. And it was amazing. The campaign did like $250,000 like in the first 4 hours or something like that. And then it was live. It was phenomenal. You can see Ethan is overwhelmed and he's blown away with the success. It was really amazing. But what it also shows you is, like, for the people that are trying to say, hey, there's no way that this campaign is going to do as much business as it did the first time, they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, what more proof would you need? The numbers are there. The business was generated. Now, sometimes there are people who also don't really understand marketing, and I don't mean to insult anyone. It's just offensive to hear the stupidity of it. So, if I'm calling people stupid, it's stupid. Don't say, oh, well, you're front loading the campaign. In business, we don't delay sales unless we can't fulfill what we promise. In my business, my main business is telemarketing company. It's a business-to-business telemarketing company. There's only a certain amount of work that our skilled and trained people can possibly do. So we do turn work away from time to time. So we don't oversell what we can deliver. But with a printed product, there's no such thing as front loading or overselling. That's idiotic. All right. So I'm going to not be negative anymore because I like being a positive person. But of course, you're not supposed to delay sales. Of course, you're supposed to drive as many sales as you possibly can, as early as you can in a campaign. That would be like someone campaigning for votes for elective office, let's say for the presidential campaign, and saying, look, I don't want people to vote early for me. I want them to vote on the day of the election. I don't want people to go into my restaurant until it's about to close. Well, what would be the possible purpose of that? So whoever is espousing those theories, not only does it not make any common sense, it makes no business and no marketing sense. Campaigns will heat up and then campaigns will slow down. Ethan's already explained he's going to launch another variant soon to push and promote his campaign. He will. It'll boost his campaign up, and good for him. He works hard. He deserves it. Now, the thing that shows us that ComicsGate is so successful is it doesn't just work at the high levels. Dan Fraga sent a tweet today saying that he's ComicsGate, which is to say that his Black Flag title that he's been working on, if everything goes well, we'll all be able to help him promote it, and we're going to love doing it. He's an amazing guy. But he's freaking Dan Fraga. I mean, we've all heard of Dan Fraga if we're in comics, certainly if you know comics from the 90s. He's a freaking legend. So is he going to sell more copies than I will, or an artist who's a new artist who doesn't have that background? Yes, probably, because he's got a built-in audience, and because he also adds tremendous value just from his existing audience and his brand name of sorts as an artist, helping to promote all of ComicsGate. Having Dan involved with ComicsGate just probably increased all of ComicsGate sales by at least 5%. Just the affiliation is tremendous. So the bigger that we get by adding big names, the better for all of us, because we work together and we help each other. And there's a lot that we can do for Dan Fraga or anyone else that wants to be involved with ComicsGate. Whether it's promotion, production, fulfillment, we know how to do all these things. So we can always help. But this is the fascinating thing about ComicsGate. Look at this small project. Really nice husband and wife couple doing this cool little project called Grim Reaper. So the first project came out to $1,795. There's still funding. They delivered this first project called the Grim Reaper, and now they're working on Grim Reaper 2. It's got 8 days left, and it's at $2,317. They've been promoted by ComicsGate. If they weren't promoted by ComicsGate, and they weren't on the live stream circuit of ComicsGate, and they haven't been on the major channels, but they've been on, let's say the tier 2 channels, and they're known, and they're great, and a lovely couple. They're great people. But look at this. Like, the second book is doing better than the first one. So is it doing gigantic numbers? No, it's not gigantic numbers, but they're able to make their comics. They're able to build a following. People are willing to give them a chance. And that's the amazing thing about ComicsGate. For me, I did $5,310 with 100 backers over originally a 30-day campaign that was extended to 60 days. And then an in-demand on Indiegogo, another great feature of Indiegogo that lets you leave a web store up so you could take additional orders after your campaign ends. I did another $5,300 approximately. But what's interesting is, so you look at this initially, $5,310 with 100 backers. Now, because I've been around, people know me, I delivered my first book, and I'm continuing to get more promotion from my other ComicsGate friends who also keep me encouraged. They also suggest that I consider color, and I made this book a color interior, which is even sharper than the black and white. It's pretty freaking amazing looking. I love how it came out. And my book's completely done. So, but look at this, 90 backers, so 90% of 100, in 9 days, rather than 60 days to get 100. That's a huge improvement. And I still haven't been on some of the main streams that I most likely will be on, because I was on them last time. John Malin's, Ethan Van Sciver's, and a couple of other streams. And I'm going to be doing more of my own promotion as well. But that said, I've almost matched the number. And this is the power of ComicsGate. They got me launched when I did my first book, helped me get over my number. I was able to deliver everything I needed to deliver on time, a little bit with the ComicsGate guys' support as well on that. And now I'm doing book 2. It's better than ever. My trailer is fantastic by Ted Zagaro, another ComicsGate resource, another ComicsGate person. And we're hitting good numbers. So, how much will this campaign do? It's going to obviously do more than the first campaign did. How much more? I don't know, but I'm happy. I hit my number. I'll promote more. We'll do more. That's the power of ComicsGate. The power of being able to get small guys funded is what shows a healthy market. Not when someone says, oh, well, the numbers from 100 projects were this average, and now, it's 150 projects, and they all seem to be competing, and the market's saturated. It's again, idiotic. That's not how business works. For example, some of you may be old enough to remember the Y2K bug. If not, I'll tell you what it is right now. Okay. The Y2K bug, also called the year 2000 bug or millennium bug, was a problem in the coding of computerized systems that was projected to create havoc in computers and computer networks around the world at the beginning of the year 2000. Okay. So what was that? That was because a lot of computer programs were like made in coded machine languages and whatnot, and they were done with 2 digits instead of 4 digits. Because when the programs were made in like the 1970s, even some programs that ran business and airline travel and all sorts of very important software that controlled business operations, they never really conceived of, oh, you know what, we'll use the same software for 20 years or 30 years. So when it was written back in the day, it was written that when it went from 99, like 1999 to 2000, and all the numbers reset to zero, it would collapse. It would be a problem. So what became really popular in the last few years of the 1990s were software publishers that would sell these software packages so that big companies could then go buy all new software and update all this new software. And then they knew that, okay, well, now we don't have this Y2K problem anymore and they didn't. They weren't going to have the Y2K problem because they spent the money on the software. So there are millions of companies, like a lot of companies. The biggest companies, for them to look at buying the software, should we spend $5 million or $10 million on software to save our $500 million company? Sure, it was like paying protection money. So the big companies, for them to pay 1% of the value of their company, didn't even think twice. Not even twice. It wouldn't make a difference. In fact, any company that was up to doing $100 million of revenue or so would buy these software packages, and then they have no problem. They had nothing to worry about. The board of directors was all chill with it. Everything was fine. However, what was the result with the software companies, these new companies? They were hugely hot. These were like some of the first really hot companies before the dot-com boom and stuff like that. They're kind of part of it, actually, but they were very big. They were getting like 100 times earnings ratio of their stock. So the stock went up, up, up. And the whole stock was based on the growth of the company because the companies were growing like incredibly fast. There was tremendous demand. However, as those big companies had bought all the software they were going to buy to deal with the Y2K bug, what started to happen was software companies started to sell less and less software because for smaller companies, they weren't so quick to want to buy $5 and $10 million packages of software. So as the company went from a $100 million a year company to like a $50 million a year to a $20 million a year to a $10 million a year company, smaller companies, people wouldn't buy the software. So these companies started to crash, the software companies. So the software companies had to reinvent themselves to actually be productive. And the reason I bring up this story is the productivity of a group like ComicsGate, where, yeah, we can do a $22,000 comic. We can do a $44,000 comic. We can do an $8,000 comic. We can do a $1,795 comic or my $10,000 comic. Or we can also do Ethan's $1 million Cyberfrog with all of his editions and his new one's not on there anymore, but his new one that's doing gigantic numbers, or me with my $5,000 so far for the first 9 days of what will ultimately be, probably 60 days going on my campaign. The ability that we can do big and we can do small and we can still be vital and everyone is happy and everyone is growing and everyone is doing well. It doesn't mean that we're not going to occasionally have one book that doesn't work. What it means that we're going consistently against the rule that number 2 is going to sell less than number 1. We're going consistently against the rule in comics that a lot of comics come out and then you never see another one and they just fail. We're going consistently against like, all right, well, if this book sells $2,000 worth and the other one sells $45,000 worth, well, the $45,000 one is viable, but that $2,000 one isn't viable. Damn right it's viable. I know they're going to put out Grim Reaper 2. They already put out Grim Reaper 1. It's not just my wishful thinking. They have it done. They're doing more business now than they did the first time. Will they do a Grim Reaper 3? I'm sure they will. Why wouldn't they? And will it be bigger than 2? Yeah, it probably will. And if they offer reprints of 1 and 2, then by the time they're offering 3, they'll have 1, 2, and 3, I'm sure, for sale in the campaign. It's a huge, huge opportunity. But just like with the Y2K bug, it's not just the big guys writing big checks. It's not just the $500,000 campaigns that are successful. We're all successful as creators. You can ask ComicsGate people, are they happy with the books they're doing? What do they look for in the future? Do they think things are going to go better in the future? We have tremendous optimism because we see success again, and again. And another reason, we hardly have problems, because as soon as we have a problem on a project, we have another friend that we can ask and say, hey, do you know a colorist? Hey, I had a problem with my letterer. Hey, I don't like this printer I've been talking to. Or, hey, how are you handling international shipping? And we all collaborate. And nobody charges each other fees for things like that. We just help each other out. And fundamentally, that is how you can tell ComicsGate is a huge success. Because yes, there are big numbers. No, it is completely irrelevant if the average number of one of the issues or one of the projects is a little bit less than this one, and that one's less than that one. And oh my God, these new people, they're only doing $2,300, but Richard Meyer did $400,000 on one of his projects. Well, what the hell does that have to do with one thing or another? That the Grim Reaper people that don't have the following that Richard Meyer does and don't have the YouTube presence that Richard Meyer does, or the promotion that Richard Meyer does through ComicsGate because of his standing with the community, created the damn thing. What the hell does it matter what the average revenue is per comic? It's complete silliness. What matters is that people like the comics, people like making the comics that deliver the comics, and that they keep going and making more of them. And even if they made a little bit less money, that would still be successful. The fact that they keep generating a little bit more money, or potentially significantly more money, I don't even know how much I might do on College of the Dead graduation day. At current run rate, at the revenue rate it's at, it could do 3 or 4 times what my prior campaign did. How could I not be happy with that? Of course I'm thrilled with that. It has nothing to do with what Richard Meyer is selling or what Ethan Van Sciver is selling, except to see their success and realize, wow, everyone is doing well who's putting the work in ComicsGate. That's how you know that ComicsGate is a huge success. That's how it's easy to tell. That's how I look at it. And this is my frame of reference. So if you have any comments, please put the comments below. Tell me where I'm wrong. I'm game. Educate me. Tell me what you have to say. Anybody's welcome. But I don't see how people can delude themselves into thinking that ComicsGate is not an enormous success when it works at high levels of sales, it works at low level of sales, and issue number 2s are actually generating more than issue number 1s, whether it's $1 million comic or a $10,000 project like mine, or $1,800 project like the Grim Reaper people and everybody else in between. All right. Be sure you subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. I will see you soon. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.